The morning sun rose over New York City, but Sarah Chen couldn't enjoy its warmth through the reinforced windows of her apartment. 3 years had passed since the Zaxxon Empire arrived on Earth, and today would be the day they took her daughter away. "Mama, I don't want to go," whispered 8-year-old Emily, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Sarah held her daughter close, fighting back tears. The alien education program was mandatory for all children between 8 and 12 years old. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. The Zaxxon guards always wore powered armor that made them sound like walking tanks. Sarah remembered when they first arrived, how different things had been back then. The aliens came in sleek silver ships that filled the skies above every major city. They spoke of peace, friendship, and sharing advanced technology. Their ambassador, tall and elegant with blue-tinted skin, promised to help solve Earth's problems: hunger, disease, climate change. Many people celebrated. Some were suspicious, but their voices were drowned out by hope. The first year seemed like a dream. The Zaxxons built clean energy plants and medical centers. They helped improve crops and cleaned up pollution. But with each gift came a contract, a protection treaty that gave them more control. By the time people realized what was happening, it was too late. A loud knock made both Sarah and Emily jump. 2 Zaxxon guards stood at the door, their armor gleaming purple in the morning light. Behind them was a human collaborator in a gray uniform. "Citizen Chen, it's time for your daughter's educational placement," the collaborator said with a practiced smile. "The Empire thanks you for your cooperation." Sarah's hand shook as she helped Emily put on her backpack. She had packed it carefully: warm clothes, Emily's favorite snacks, and a small tablet with family photos. The guards weren't supposed to allow personal items, but sometimes they didn't check thoroughly. As they led Emily away, Sarah noticed something odd. The guard on the left had a slight limp. Their usually perfect movements weren't so perfect today. She filed this detail away, not knowing why it seemed important. Later that night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, thinking about Emily's empty bed. A soft tap at her window made her freeze. Then came another, following a distinct pattern. 3 quick taps, too slow. Heart pounding, Sarah went to the window. A small drone hovered outside, barely visible in the darkness. It dropped a package onto her balcony and disappeared into the night. Inside the package was a single piece of paper with a message: "Not all guards are what they seem. Hope lives. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., Central Park, Bench 17. Wear red." Sarah's hands trembled as she read the note again. She thought about the limping guard, about all the small imperfections she'd noticed lately in the usually flawless Zaxxon operations. Her fear for Emily transformed into something else: determination. The next day, Sarah sat on bench 17 wearing a red scarf. An old man feeding pigeons sat down beside her. Without looking at her, he spoke quietly. "The guard who took your daughter. One of ours. She's safe. We have people inside their system now." Sarah kept her eyes forward, fighting the urge to turn and stare at him. "How?" she whispered. "Their armor can be copied. Their codes can be broken. Their arrogance makes them vulnerable." The old man said, "We've been preparing for 3 years. Gathering intel. Stealing technology. Building a network. There are more of us than you know." He stood up, dropping a small device that looked like a regular phone into her lap. "If you want to see your daughter again, if you want to fight back, take this. If not, throw it in the river and forget this conversation." Sarah clutched the device. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "When do we start?" The old man smiled for the first time. "We already have. The Empire thinks they've won. They think humans are just sheep to be herded, but they've never faced anything like us before. They don't understand that taking our children was the final straw." He walked away, leaving Sarah with the device and something she hadn't felt in 3 years: hope. As the sun set over Central Park, casting long shadows through the trees, she knew that the real story was just beginning. The Empire had made a fatal mistake. They had pushed humanity too far, and now they would learn why that was so dangerous. The breaking point had arrived. The abandoned subway tunnel wasn't just dark. It was a different kind of darkness that seemed to swallow even the faintest light. Sarah Chen gripped the strange device she'd received in Central Park, using its dim blue glow to guide her way. The message had been clear. Follow the old F line to the ghost station. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. Her footsteps echoed off tile walls covered in decades-old graffiti. Then she saw it, a faded butterfly painted in luminescent paint, barely visible unless you knew to look for it, just like the instructions had said. 3 knocks. Wait, 2 knocks. A section of wall slid aside silently, revealing a sight that made Sarah gasp. The ghost station had been transformed into a high-tech resistance base. Stolen Zaxxon screens lined the walls, showing real-time feeds from around the city. But what really caught her attention were the people, dozens of them, wearing pieces of modified Zaxxon armor mixed with human clothing. "Welcome to the Butterfly Station," said a familiar voice. The old man from the park stepped forward, but he wasn't old anymore. He peeled off what looked like a layer of skin. Advanced holographic disguise technology. "I'm Commander Richards, and this is just one of 50 similar bases across the globe." A young woman in a lab coat approached, carrying what looked like a Zaxxon weapon. The Empire's biggest weakness. They think they're perfect. She pulled the weapon apart with practiced ease. Their arrogance means they never update their security protocols. One code cracked stays cracked. But how? Sarah asked, watching as others worked on various pieces of alien tech. Their technology is so advanced. Richard smiled. Advanced doesn't mean unbeatable. Remember the first computers? Room-sized machines that could barely add numbers. Now look at what humans did with that technology in just decades. We learn. We adapt. We improve. He led her to a massive screen showing the 3D map of New York. Red dots pulsed at various points. Each dot is a resistance member inside their system, including the guard who helped take your daughter. He zoomed in on a facility outside the city. "Emily is here, along with other children. They're safe. Our people make sure of it." "The Empire thinks they're running education camps," the scientist woman added. "They don't realize they've given us the perfect cover to teach the next generation how to fight back." Sarah watched as a group trained nearby, moving with impossible speed in partial Zaxxon armor. "How did you copy their technology?" "We didn't. We improved it." Richards pointed to the armor. "Their suits are powered by crystalline energy cores, efficient but rigid in design. Our engineers found a way to modify them, make them more adaptable. The Empire thinks in straight lines. Humans." He grinned. "We think in circles and zigzags." A sudden alarm blared. Red lights flashed across the station. "Patrol approaching Sector 5. Someone shouted. "Perfect timing," Richard said, grabbing what looked like a regular subway worker's uniform. "Time for your first lesson in hiding in plain sight." The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Screens disappeared into walls. Armor vanished under holographic disguises. By the time the Zaxxon patrol passed overhead, the resistance base looked like nothing more than an abandoned maintenance station, populated by a few tired workers doing routine checks. The patrol moved on. Equipment reappeared. Training resumed. Sarah watched in amazement as a teenager demonstrated how to hack a Zaxxon communication device, using nothing but a modified smartphone. "The Empire's greatest mistake," Richard said quietly, "wasn't underestimating our technology. It was underestimating our creativity, our adaptability, our sheer stubborn determination to protect our own." He handed Sarah what looked like a maintenance worker's ID badge. "Ready to start your training." Sarah looked at the badge, then at the busy base around her. She thought of Emily, imagining her daughter learning not just to survive under the Empire's rule, but to fight back. Her voice was firm. "When do we begin?" "We already have," Richards replied, leading her toward the training area. "Lesson 1. Sometimes the best strength isn't in what you show. He pressed a button, and his uniform transformed into perfect Zaxxon armor. It's in what you hide. Around them, the resistance continued their work, preparing for a day the Empire never saw coming. In the shadows of forgotten tunnels, humanity's hidden strength grew stronger with each passing moment. The Empire had no idea that their perfect system was already being turned against them, piece by piece, by the very species they thought they had conquered. The revolution wouldn't start with a bang. It would start with a whisper, a shadow, and a butterfly painted on a wall. The Zaxxon Processing Center towered over downtown Manhattan, its crystalline walls gleaming in the morning sun. From her street vendor cart, Sarah Chen watched aliens and human collaborators stream in and out. 3 months of training had led to this moment. "Hot dogs. Get your hot dogs here," she called out, her voice cheerful. The food cart's battered exterior hid more technology than most Zaxxon battleships. Beneath the rusted metal and fake hot dogs lay the Resistance's most ambitious plan yet. Through her specially modified contact lenses, Sarah could see the hidden signals. 30 Resistance members were in position, each disguised as ordinary workers. The hot dog cart scanner showed them as green dots on her retinal display. One of them was pushing a cleaning cart into the building's west entrance. Another was fixing a terminal in the lobby. All normal sights in a Zaxxon facility. "Remember," Richard's voice whispered through her nearly invisible earpiece, "timing is everything. We only get one shot at this." Sarah checked her watch, an ordinary-looking device that could disable Zaxxon security systems within a 10-meter radius. 11:57 a.m., 3 minutes until the daily security reset, a 2-second window when their systems would be most vulnerable. A tall Zaxxon administrator approached her cart. "Sustenance unit," it said in that oddly musical accent all aliens had, "provide me with one of your processed meat tubes." Sarah smiled, playing the part of an eager vendor. As she prepared the hot dog, she noticed something that made her heart skip. The administrator wore a level 5 security badge. The Resistance had never managed to copy one that high. "Would you like extra napkins, sir?" she asked, deliberately fumbling the exchange. The hot dog fell. When the Zaxxon bent to help, a gesture of their supposed superiority, Sarah's hand brushed against the badge. The scanner in her ring copied its encryption in microseconds. 11:59 a.m. Across the street, a street musician began playing Amazing Grace on his violin. The signal. Sarah's fingers moved under her cart, activating the device hidden within. Around the building, 30 other Resistance members did the same with their hidden tech. 12:00 p.m. For 2 seconds, the Zaxxon's security grid reset. In those 2 seconds, hundreds of computer viruses, each designed to look like routine system updates, flooded their network. But these weren't ordinary viruses. They were fragments, pieces of code that would lay dormant, undetectable, until they received the signal to unite. "Package delivered," Sarah whispered into her comm, selling another hot dog to maintain her cover. That's when everything went wrong. A Zaxxon security drone, a new model they hadn't seen before, swooped down toward her cart. Its scanners probed deeper than they should have been able to. Sarah's heart raced. Discovery now would ruin everything. Then she saw him, a teenage boy running down the street, being chased by Zaxxon guards. He was heading straight for her cart. "Unauthorized human," the guards shouted. "Stop immediately." The boy didn't stop. Instead, he winked at Sarah as he passed. It was Danny, one of their youngest operators. His chase was a diversion, drawing attention from the subtle attack happening under everyone's noses. The security drone followed Danny, its advanced scanners focused on the chase rather than Sarah's cart. Within minutes, the commotion died down. Danny would escape through one of their underground routes, having successfully pulled attention away from the real operation. By sunset, Sarah had packed up her cart and headed back to Butterfly Station. The command center was buzzing with activity. Screens showed the dormant viruses, now safely hidden in the Zaxxon network, waiting to be activated. Phase 1 complete, Richards announced to the assembled resistance members. Thanks to everyone's performance today, we now have a digital army sitting right in their core systems. They won't even know it's there until it's too late. Sarah studied the screens, thinking of Emily. Each dormant virus represented a chance to strike back, to reclaim their world. But as she watched the data streams, she noticed something strange. Patterns in the Zaxxon security protocols she hadn't seen before. "Commander," she called out, pointing to the screen. "Look at this. The new security drones. The way they scan. I don't think they're just updates to the old system." Richard's face grew serious as he studied the data. "They're preparing for something," he said quietly. "Something big." Around them, the resistance base hummed with energy as people prepared for the next phase. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't the only ones with hidden plans. The Empire was changing its tactics, adapting just as humanity had. The first strike had been successful, but the real battle was just beginning. And somewhere in the city above, new Zaxxon security drones patrolled the skies, their advanced scanners searching for any sign of rebellion. The new Zaxxon drones cast eerie purple shadows over New York as they patrolled in formations never seen before. Sarah Chen watched them from the rooftop garden of the Empire's Central Command building, her maintenance worker disguise allowing her to move freely among the building's air filtration units. "They're not just searching," she whispered into her hidden communicator, designed to look like a tooth filling. "They're mapping." The drones moved in complex patterns, their sensors penetrating deeper into the city's infrastructure than ever before. Each drone left behind invisible quantum markers, creating a three-dimensional grid of the city that could detect even the slightest underground movement. In the Resistance's main base, Commander Richards studied the data Sarah transmitted. "They're looking for our tunnels," he realized. "They finally figured out we're under their feet." The first attack came at midnight. Purple beams sliced through the street above Butterfly Station, vaporizing concrete and steel. Sarah was halfway through her shift at the command building when the emergency alerts flooded in. The Empire had located 3 resistance bases simultaneously. But the Resistance had prepared for this moment. As Zaxxon forces breached the first tunnel, they found only empty rooms. Holographic projectors created ghost images of fleeing humans, leading the aliens deeper into a maze of abandoned subway tunnels. Meanwhile, the real Resistance members escaped through maintenance shafts that had been deliberately excluded from city plans since the 1950s. "Activate Protocol Hydra," Richards commanded from their new mobile base, a converted garbage truck filled with stolen Zaxxon tech. Sarah watched from her position as the building's environmental systems suddenly went haywire. The viruses they planted 3 weeks ago sprang to life, but not as simple attacks. Each piece of code transformed, adapting and evolving like a living organism. The Empire's perfect systems began to falter. But the Zaxxon response was devastating. Massive walker units, never before seen on Earth, emerged from hidden hangars. Each one stood 15 stories tall, their legs crushing cars and buses as they moved through the streets. They carried weapons that could detect and neutralize electronic signals, a direct counter to human resistance technology. They've been preparing too, Sarah realized, watching as the walkers systematically shut down entire city blocks. They knew we'd try to use their tech against them. That's when Danny, their young tech expert, made his most brilliant move. "If we can't use their tech," his voice crackled over the Resistance channel, "let's go older. Much older." Across the city, Resistance members abandoned their modified Zaxxon devices. Instead, they pulled out technology that the Empire had never bothered to study or defend against, because it seemed too primitive to be a threat. Mechanical watches replaced digital timers. Hand-cranked radios replaced quantum communicators. Simple mirrors and sunlight replaced laser signals. The Resistance transformed into a hybrid force, part high-tech, part historical innovation. Sarah smiled as she took out her grandmother's old compass, modified with just a touch of Zaxxon crystal to point toward alien energy signatures instead of magnetic north. Sometimes the best solutions were the simplest ones. The walkers faltered, their sensors designed to detect advanced technology blind to these basic tools. Resistance members used simple pulleys and levers, physics that hadn't changed in millennia, to set up mechanical traps. Steam-powered devices, reinvented with modern materials, created electromagnetic pulses that confuse Zaxxon sensors. But victory came at a heavy price. 3 resistance bases were lost. Dozens of fighters went missing, and the Empire's response had shown just how many resources they'd been hiding on Earth. As night fell, Sarah made her way to the new resistance headquarters, now hidden inside an old mechanical clock tower. The giant gears and pistons that once told time now powered their communications network, immune to Zaxxon detection. "They thought this would break us," Richard said, studying a paper map marked with colored pins, no digital displays to detect. "Instead, we've learned something crucial. The Empire's greatest weakness isn't in their technology. It's in their inability to understand human ingenuity," Sarah finished, watching the sun set through the clock tower's face. "They expect us to fight on their terms." A mechanical bell chimed, a signal from another resistance cell. More Zaxxon walkers were coming. But this time, the resistance was ready. Sometimes the best way to fight the future was with the past. As Sarah prepared for another night of battle, she thought of Emily, still inside the Empire's education facility. Soon, very soon, they would be strong enough to get their children back. The Empire had shown their hand. Now it was humanity's turn to show theirs. The world changed on a Tuesday morning when Mount Fuji's peak suddenly split open, revealing a massive hidden Zaxxon base. Sarah Chen watched the news footage from the Resistance's clock tower headquarters, but her attention was on something else, a pattern in the Empire's global communications. "Look at these energy signatures," she said, pointing to the mechanical display that used colored water in glass tubes to show Zaxxon power usage. "Every major mountain range on Earth has similar readings." Commander Richard studied the data through a modified kaleidoscope, their new low-tech way of analyzing complex patterns. "They'd been inside our mountains this whole time. No wonder they let us keep our old military bases. The real threat was somewhere we never thought to look." But the Empire's revelation of their mountain fortress had an unexpected effect. It united humanity in a way nothing else had. From the Amazon to the Himalayas, indigenous peoples who had lived alongside these mountains for generations came forward with ancient knowledge. Stories passed down through centuries suddenly had new meaning. The spirit lights in the mountains hadn't been gods or aliens. They had been Zaxxon survey teams, preparing Earth for invasion decades before they officially arrived. "Commander." Danny burst into the room, waving the sheet of paper with hand-drawn diagrams. "The Australian Resistance just sent this by Morse code. Their Aboriginal guides found something in the outback. The Empire's got a weakness." The drawings showed cave paintings, tens of thousands of years old, depicting strange creatures that looked remarkably like Zaxxons. But more importantly, they showed how ancient humans had fought them off, using the Earth itself as a weapon. Sarah's eyes widened as she understood. The Empire chose mountains because they're stable, predictable. They hate uncertainty. And what's more uncertain than the ground beneath their feet, Richards finished. "Every culture on Earth has stories about controlling the land, working with nature instead of against it. Knowledge the Empire dismissed as primitive superstition." The next phase of resistance began not with high technology or even simple machines, but with wisdom passed down through generations. Native American trackers could spot hidden Zaxxon entrances by reading the way birds avoided certain areas. African tribal leaders knew which caves would amplify sonic weapons. Pacific Islanders understood ocean currents that could disable the Empire's underwater sensors. In Tibet, Buddhist monks demonstrated how their meditation techniques could actually hide human brain activity from Zaxxon scanners. In Peru, descendants of the Inca showed how their ancestors had built earthquake-resistant structures, knowledge that could be used to protect resistance bases from empire attacks. Sarah found herself working with a team of global experts, each bringing their culture's unique understanding of Earth's secrets. Her daughter Emily, still inside the Empire's education facility, managed to smuggle out crucial information through an ancient Chinese code hidden in simple children's drawings. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a group of Australian children who had grown up in the Empire's education camps. They noticed something no adult had. The Zaxxons moved differently on hot days. Their supposedly perfect environmental suits had a fatal flaw. They couldn't handle rapid temperature changes. Every culture on Earth has a sweat lodge tradition, an elder explained during a global resistance meeting, held in person because digital communications were too risky. We've always known how to use heat and cold to transform ourselves. The Empire never bothered to protect against such primitive methods. The plan that emerged combined everything humanity had learned. Traditional fire-starting techniques from every continent, ancient architectural principles for controlling airflow, songs and rhythms that had been used to coordinate warriors for millennia. As Sarah helped coordinate the global effort from New York, she felt something she hadn't experienced since the invasion. True hope. The Empire had conquered a divided Earth. They weren't prepared for a united one. The Resistance's new weapon wasn't technology or even wisdom. It was synthesis, the combination of all human knowledge, old and new, scientific and spiritual, logical and intuitive. Tomorrow, Richards announced to the assembled leaders from every continent, their faces lit by simple candlelight, we show them why Earth has survived everything the universe has thrown at it. We show them what really makes humanity strong. Sarah looked at Emily's latest coded drawing, a simple butterfly made with temperature-sensitive ink. When heated, it revealed the location of every mountain base's thermal exhaust port. The Empire's greatest fortress was about to become their greatest vulnerability. The plan began not in space, but under the sea. Sarah Chen stood on a submarine made from salvaged Zaxxon parts and human ingenuity, watching through its crystal viewport as whales swam past, each one carrying a specially designed resistance pod. The Empire controls the skies. Richard's voice crackled through an old-fashioned hydrophone. So we'll take the long way up. Operation Leapfrog was humanity's most audacious plan yet. The Empire expected attacks from the ground. They never thought to look down at Earth's oceans or up at the creatures that had mastered them. Marine biologists had made an astounding discovery. Whales could survive in space. Their natural ability to handle extreme pressure changes, combined with their massive oxygen storage, made them perfect space travelers. The Resistance had simply given them a way to do it. Biopods in position, Sarah reported, watching as the last whale moved into formation. Each carried resistance fighters in chambers designed using a combination of Zaxxon tech and nature's own solutions. The pods were grown, not built, using modified coral that could withstand both ocean depths and the vacuum of space. The first phase began at midnight. Around the world, every remaining resistance cell launched their attacks on mountain bases simultaneously. But these weren't ordinary attacks. They were distractions. As Zaxxon forces rushed to defend their mountain fortresses, the real mission began. Dozens of whales, carrying hundreds of resistance fighters, began their ascent. They moved in perfect formation, using Earth's magnetic field for guidance, just as they had done for millions of years. Sarah's submarine tracked their progress. The sight was incredible. Massive shadows rising through the dark water, heading for the surface. But the truly spectacular moment came when they breached. The whales didn't stop at the surface. They kept going, their biopods glowing with modified bioluminescence that protected them from radiation. Earth's largest creatures became humanity's first organic spaceward vessels. Empire ships detecting unusual movement, Danny reported from the clock tower base. But their sensors are calibrated for mechanical vessels. They're reading the whales as space debris. The pods carried more than just fighters. Each whale's natural electromagnetic field had been slightly modified to interfere with Zaxxon systems. As they approached the Empire's orbital stations, their massive bodies created a web of disruption that the aliens had never encountered. Sarah watched through advanced telescopes as the space battle unfolded. Zaxxon ships, their perfect formations disrupted by whale song transmitted through space itself, began to break ranks. The resistance fighters, using suits designed with inspiration from both spacewalking mammals and deep-sea creatures, moved in. But the Empire had one last surprise. A massive ship emerged from behind Earth's moon, a vessel larger than any they'd seen before. Its surface rippled with living metal, adapting and changing to counter each resistance strategy. That's when Sarah activated the final part of the plan. She sent a signal, not to the fighters, but to the whales themselves. A simple song, carrying a complex message. The whales responded, not as transportation, but as active participants in the battle. Their natural sonar, amplified by both technology and their own understanding of cosmic rhythms, created a symphony of destruction. The Empire's living metal ships couldn't adapt fast enough to frequencies that had been perfected over millions of years of evolution. Space itself seemed to vibrate as whale song met alien technology. The massive ship's living metal surface began to crystallize, unable to process the complex natural patterns. Resistance fighters, moving through space with techniques learned from studying how whales navigate ocean currents, seized their moment. They're retreating. Danny's voice filled the resistance channel. The main ship is pulling back. But Sarah noticed something in the whale song data, a pattern she recognized from Emily's coded drawings. "Wait," she called out. "There's something else coming. Something bigger." As the Empire's forces withdrew beyond the moon, a new signal appeared, not from space, but from Earth's core itself. The Empire's mountain bases had been a distraction too. Their real fortress had been beneath everyone's feet all along. The final battle wouldn't be fought in space or on land, but in the very heart of Earth itself. And as Sarah prepared to dive deeper than any submarine had gone before, she realized that humanity's greatest test was still to come. Deep beneath the Earth's crust, where pressure and heat made every second a battle for survival, Sarah Chen piloted the most unlikely vehicle ever created, a hybrid vessel that was part submarine, part drill, and part living organism. The Resistance's final mission had taken them to a place no human was meant to survive. Core temperature approaching 5,000 degrees. Danny's voice crackled through systems shielded by crystals grown from a combination of deep-sea bacteria and Zaxxon technology. The Empire's fortress is directly below us. Through the viewport, Sarah saw it, a massive structure built into Earth's outer core itself. The Zaxxon's true base wasn't just underground. It was a giant machine designed to harness the planet's magnetic field. They hadn't come to conquer Earth. They'd come to turn it into a weapon. All teams in position. Richards reported from the surface. Above, the space whale pods maintained their blockade. On every continent, resistance fighters waited at the volcanic points they'd discovered with help from ancient wisdom and modern geology. The Empire had made one critical mistake. They'd built their fortress using perfect mathematical patterns, believing Earth's core operated like a machine. But Earth wasn't a machine. It was alive, and it moved in ways their calculations couldn't predict. Emily's last message confirmed it. Sarah said, studying the patterns her daughter had encoded into seemingly innocent drawings. The Empire can't control the core's fluctuations. They've been trying to stabilize it for decades. That's when Sarah initiated humanity's final gambit, not with advanced weapons or clever tactics, but with surrender. She transmitted a signal using the Empire's own frequencies. "We know what you've built. We know why you're here. Let us help you." The response was immediate. The fortress's defenses powered down just enough to let their vessel approach. The Empire, so certain of their superiority, couldn't imagine this was anything but desperation. They were wrong. The moment they entered the fortress, Sarah's team released their secret weapon, an engineered microorganism that was neither fully Earth-based nor completely alien. Created by combining extremophile bacteria with samples of Zaxxon biology, these microscopic allies could survive in the core's extreme conditions and multiply rapidly. But they didn't attack. Instead, they began to communicate. The Empire had built their fortress with living metal, just like their ships. The microorganisms didn't try to destroy it. They taught it to dance to Earth's rhythms instead of fighting them. Through the fortress's own systems, Sarah broadcast a signal that combined whale song, volcanic vibrations, and the natural frequency of Earth's magnetic field. The living metal began to pulse in harmony with the planet instead of trying to control it. "Look!" Danny's voice was filled with awe. Across their screens, the fortress's rigid patterns began to flow like waves. The Empire's perfect mathematics transformed into something organic, adaptive, alive. That's when the Zaxxon High Command made their final appearance. Their leader, expecting to find defeated humans begging for mercy, instead witnessed something unprecedented, their own technology evolving beyond their control. "Your planet," Sarah addressed them, "isn't just a rock to be conquered. It's a partner to be understood, something your empire forgot long ago." The fortress, now resonating with Earth's natural frequencies, began to change. The living metal, guided by the microorganisms, restructured itself. Instead of harnessing Earth's core, it became part of it, a safeguard rather than a weapon. From their detention centers around the world, including Emily's education facility, came an unexpected sound. Zaxxon children, raised on Earth, singing in harmony with human songs. They understood what their leaders had forgotten: the power of adaptation, of harmony, of change. The Empire's perfect order crumbled not through violence, but through evolution. Their forces retreated not in defeat, but in transformation. Some Zaxxons, particularly the younger ones, chose to stay, eager to learn what their species had forgotten about living in balance with a living world. As Sarah's vessel ascended through the layers of Earth, she saw the changes already beginning. The living metal of the fortress had spread, creating a new layer that strengthened Earth's magnetic field rather than trying to control it. Humanity hadn't just won their freedom. They'd gained new allies and a deeper understanding of their own world. The sun rose over a changed Earth. In New York, Sarah finally held Emily again, watching as human and Zaxxon children played together in parks once dominated by patrol drones. The Empire's rigid structures had been transformed into living architecture that worked with nature instead of against it. "What do we do now?" Emily asked, looking up at the sky where space whales still patrolled, now accompanied by transformed Zaxxon ships that moved like schools of fish through the cosmos. Sarah smiled, thinking of all they'd learned, about their planet, about themselves, about the true meaning of evolution and adaptation. "Now," she said, "we grow. Together." In the end, humanity's greatest victory wasn't defeating the Empire. It was showing them a better way to live among the stars.